Good morning, Los Angeles, the Southland, Chargers fans, Rams fans. If there's any Trojans fans left after last night,
Oof.
Bruins fans had a week off. Good morning to everyone. Welcome into LAFB Live, our new time every Sunday at 8:30 as we can recap some college games and preview our NFL games. But first, joined as always by the best beard in the business, Stephen Haglund. What's going on, man?
I'm good, man. Thank you for the compliment. I didn't sleep much last night, but got a workout in already this morning. So, doing a little better, ready for some Chargers football. It's so weird having 10 a.m. kickoffs. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so used to the 1 p.m. kick. And so, like, I'm like, oh, we have a game in an hour and a half. Like, it's just like, very exciting. Really just cannot wait to see what this team looks like. I'm wearing a Derwin James t-shirt today. So
Love
excited to see him back on the field. And that's how I'm doing right now.
Love it. I love the dedication to the workout. Even with the lack of sleep, you're like, I'm getting this in. Was it a Peloton workout?
Yeah, it was just a Peloton workout.
Okay.
Just a quick little 30-minute Peloton ride. Then I took my dog solely on a walk. So we're feeling good.
Good for you. That's great. So yeah, as you mentioned, Chargers 10 a.m. kickoff, and then the Rams are prime time tonight at 5:30. So we have some time in between games to hopefully celebrate a Chargers victory.
Yeah.
But we're gonna get into that. We're gonna get all into that. Preview both these games. Give our key matchups, thoughts on that. But first, we got to talk a little bit about yesterday. About obviously UCLA's on a bye, so we need to talk about them. But Utah, rough game. USC, which I was at, rough game. Oregon, great game. Colorado, almost good game. Upset. It was a very up and down day for the Pac-12 overall. Overall, I would say positive. I mean, anytime a Pac-12 team can beat, Ohio State team and almost a Texas A&M team, that's a positive. But I'll let you start since you're a diehard Utah fan, and we'll end with the USC, and I'll get into my observations there as I was there in the press box. But your Utah Utes face your hated rival BYU. I think I saw your co-host Alex call them America's team, Brigham Young.
Alex is such an obnoxious college football fan because he's a Rutgers guy and they've always been bad. So he just like talks shit on everybody else's teams.
Everyone that has horrible teams is just like a scorned lover. They just hate everyone, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like Alex is more of a fan of hating Ohio State than like anything else in college football. So he was pretty happy yesterday, and it was a great day for Oregon fans, and I would say it was a great game for Colorado. Like, I really would, even though they didn't get the win, like showing out like that against an SEC, top 5 SEC team. Like, I think that's going to bode very well for them.
And I believe they have a true freshman quarterback starting too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So that's one of those, you never want to say like a good loss, but that's a good loss for Colorado, in my opinion. But yeah, getting to the Utes, like it was a mess from the start. And the BYU and Utah games are always very physical. The BYU staff is full of former Utah coaches, and so they have very similar styles. And so the game is always physical. And the thing that we've always been able to count on with Kyle Whittingham in general, but specifically against BYU, is that, they have this culture of toughness and energy and playmaking, and like, we're just going to be the physical team. And so even if you punch us in the mouth, like, we're going to come back and punch you back.
Mm-hmm.
And that never really happened last night. Like, it was a bad game from the start. Utah had an early interception. Charlie Brewer was trying to throw a screen pass, sailed it over the receiver's head. And then the next drive, the running back had a fumble, a JUCO transfer named Tavion Thomas. And they just never really recovered. And it seemed like they finally were getting some momentum going. And they had this 4th and 2, I think at like the BYU 18-yard line. And, you could definitely kick the field goal, take the points, and it would have been 10-10 at the time, basically heading into halftime. So Utah goes for it. And again, like, Utah has this physical style. Like, they prefer to say, just line up across the board and say, our guys are going to out physical your guys. But they line up in shotgun in a trips set to the left with one tight end to the right. and they essentially just do like a halfback dive out of shotgun, which is like
Sounds like
literally
USC.
it's like literally the least effective and efficient running play in the book. Like there is not a worse play call.
Yep.
And of course, BYU stuffs it. Then they go down and score a touchdown to go into halftime. They missed the PAT, but it was 16-10. It was 16-7 at halftime, and Utah was just never able to recover. So it's a frustrating day to be a Utah fan. Like obviously, we knew that the streak against BYU was going to end, but just the way that it ended makes it really frustrating. Like I could have handled, a really close loss that was kind of like a clean game from both sides, but it just felt like Utah didn't show up. Like for whatever reason, it looked like they were unprepared. It looked like they were playing uninspired, except for their running back. Their running back, Mekhi Bernard, had a fantastic day.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of going to be that guy going forward, I think. But outside of that, like, I've been very vocal about my opinion of Devin Lloyd being like a first-round player. He was not very good. Nephi Sewell, I think, is a draftable player. He wasn't very good. So Utah's stars did not show up, and it was just bad. Like it was a bad look for the program, in my opinion.
Yeah, the streak dates back to like 2009 or something.
2009, yeah.
Yeah. So
like if you had told 2009, I was a sophomore in high school. Like if you told sophomore me that like, hey, Utah's going to win 9 of the next 10 against BYU, I would have been like, sign me the hell up. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
But it was just the way that they lost.
Yeah.
Like BYU is supposed to be the little brother in this relationship, and the little brother swung hard, and the older brother did not swing back. So it was just frustrating.
Yeah. And it's so rare. I don't watch a ton of Utah football, but of the years I've watched enough and you mentioned they just looked unprepared and uninspired, which is just so rare for a Kyle Whittingham team.
Yes.
Like you can always say maybe they don't have the same talent as some of the top tier schools, but they're one of the most well coached and prepared teams every week in and week out. So interesting. I didn't get to watch it all because I was at the SC game and they played the same time. But pretty similar performances. It sounds like same song and dance for USC. Just looked out coached. Well, and then we needed a few minutes without dropping in. Say hi real quick.
Hi, Mia.
Okay, are you good? Are you good now? Okay.
Live TV. Let's go.
Yeah, I know, right? Beauty of it. Yeah. Okay. Can we finish the show? Yeah.
Austin Eckler is officially active.
Yes. And I just saw Zach Moss officially inactive, which I was surprised by. Hey.
Yeah, very weird. So Easton Stick, Joshua Kelly, Trey Marshall, Eamon Ogbongbemia, and Trey McKitty are the inactives for the Chargers.
Interesting. Joshua Kelly. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. We're going to try to ride this out. Can you let go? So anyway, USC, same uninspired performance, just outcoached per usual, has been the theme with this Clay Helton era, unfortunately. And it's, it's sad, man. Like it was a decent crowd. It wasn't it was a decent crowd. It wasn't like a sold out, but it was, I think 59,000 was the reported total. Probably by halftime, there was 20,000 remaining. That many people had left, just fed up. So it was a rough game for them. I think the offense just looks very okay. Come on now, Mia. You're doing so good. Boy. But yeah, she's not happy about the game either. Not happy about the game either.
Not at all. Can't say I blame her.
Yeah. Did you see any of it or no? You were just all in the
I flipped to it for a little bit while Utah was on a halftime. But yeah, it's unfortunate because, like, to be honest with you, like, I think USC could still win the South, which is crazy because they're just that much more talented than everybody in the division at this point. But this just seems like who Clay Helton is. Like, they're gonna have a letdown. Outside of last year, I feel like they've generally always had a super poor performance at some point in the season at home. In 2019, like, Oregon was really good that year, but I think if I remember correctly, it was like 52-7, and I didn't think Oregon was that much better than USC. So it just feels like this is kind of who they are under Clay Helton. Like, they're gonna have a letdown at some point. which
Well,
kind of sucks.
It's so frustrating because you mentioned the talent on the field. They have the talent. Like they have maybe they don't have like the Alabama talent, but they certainly have top tier talent in the Pac-12. Certainly enough 4 stars and a couple 5 stars that it's not an excuse. Like they have more talent than like a Utah team or a UCLA team or probably the only team that maybe has equal talent is Oregon with their recruiting that they've been doing. But they just, you feel bad because he is such a good guy, and that's always the story over and over is like, well, he's a good guy, but just not a good coach, or just not the guy to take him to the promised land. And you see it every week. They just come out, look uninspired. The offense, and I've been a big Graham Harrell guy, but ever since his first season and him and Keaton Slow his first season together, the offense has just continually trended downward. Like they just can't get in a rhythm. There's no big explosive plays. Receivers last night could not get open. I mean, there was times when the Slovas had like 8 seconds in the pocket, and just if you're watching on TV, you're like, throw it. What are you doing? But you see at the game, like no one's open. Like just no. So I don't know if the route combinations are just horrible, that they're just not doing good route combinations in order to free guys up. The running game had its moments. Vivai Malapai, I thought he was probably the best player in this game period. He at least played with passion, poise. So it sounds like both our teams, the running game, at least there was some positives there. But the hardest thing for me right now with Clay, and he said it in his press conference, and I don't know how many people noticed it, but it's something that kind of struck me, is he said to the tune, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but this is week 2. It's just week 2. We're going to correct what we've done. And when the season's over, we'll have a successful season. The thing with that, and the way I took it is, and from that quote, obviously he's going to be positive. He's sitting between 2 of his captains. He's not going to just rain down on his team. Yeah. But the thing that you take from that is, what is your term of success, coach, for this USC team? Is it 1 to 2 losses and a chance for a Pac-12 South title and a chance to play in the Pac-12 title game? Because for this program, it should be college football playoff or bust every year. And so if you say at the end of the year, we will be successful, but that means you have 2 losses and you're playing UCLA in the final game of the year for a shot at the Pac-12 title, but you see that as success, that's where the problem arises. And I think that's why the fan base is so fed up. And, their next home game is against Oregon State. They travel to Washington State next week. If Clay Helton's still around, which it seems like he'll at least make it through the whole season, would not be shocked if it's not even a quarter full. I think it's going to be an empty house the rest of the year.
Yeah, and it's not like Oregon State's very good either. But, I mean, that's the thing with, like, these expectations for these programs. Like, Utah lost to BYU, which sucks, and it's very frustrating. But for Utah, like, they could still have a successful season. Like, if Utah is what you're saying, a chance to win the South, a chance to play in the Pac-12 championship, like, to me, that's a success. But that's Utah. Like, Utah has, I think, 7 4-star recruits that are starting for them this year, maybe closer to 10. But USC has 4-star recruits across the board and 5-star recruits at some positions. And we were talking a couple of weeks ago about Drake Jackson being like a first-round pick. Again, this edge rusher class is loaded, but Drake Jackson has that kind of talent, and he's not the only one on the team that has first-round talent. So it's a frustrating state for both teams, but USC, this is kind of inexcusable. Like, if this were 3 or 4 years ago when Helton were just starting, like, I would get it. But I mean, this is his team now. Like, the sanctions are gone. He can do whatever he wants.
8 years in, yeah.
Like, this needs to be some put up or shut up time for Clay Helton. And the successful season for them, I get it. Again, if this were a non-conference game, sure, I guess you could say that, Clay, but you have to play Utah this year. You have to play UCLA, who's better this year. Like, even BYU at the end of the season, which we were kind of making fun of last week, BYU looked really good yesterday. So I'll believe it when I see it, I guess, Coach. Like, if you're win the rest of the games, sure, but that doesn't seem likely at this point.
Yeah, and it's just not the mentality they need to have. And it just, I mean, we were talking in the press box, me and some of the guys, like, can you imagine if the guy on the other side of the sideline was coaching this USC team? Like, if David Shaw was the head of this USC team, they probably would be a college football playoff team year in and year out, because that's just how much he elevates his players and his coaching staff. And so we'll see, man. I mean, it was definitely I haven't been. I mean, it's been like that for a while now with him at the helm. But it was a dark night at a dark Pac-12 after dark game. As it was just a lot of disappointment with this USC team. So we'll see how they bounce back. But UCLA right now is the hot team in LA. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. Stanford lost to Kansas State last week, and they kind of got blown out against Kansas State, who's not very good. So it's not like this was a team that was rolling, a team like the Oregon in 2019. Like that was not what happened here. So
yeah,
it's just kind of frustrating. And also, like, the new Pac-12 commissioner, please, for the love of God, retire the Pac-12 after dark bullshit. Like,
yeah,
I understand night games are fun, but games ending at midnight California time is just like ridiculous. Like, please move the games up earlier, for the love of God.
Yeah, I didn't get home until like 1 a.m. and then I had to finish writing my story on it. So I didn't go to bed till like 2:30 last night. So it's not ideal.
No,
it's not ideal. A big noon kickoff is much better.
Oh yeah, all the time.
But let's get into these pro games so we can hopefully turn some positive light. Chargers kickoff. Where are we at? 8:45, 8:48. Chargers kickoff in about a little over an hour. Finally, the Brandon Staley era begins in Washington. Everyone's excited. You mentioned it when my daughter was throwing a fit, but the couple inactives, what was it? Josh Kelly, you said, Trey McKitty. I'll let you list them all off again because I already forgot.
It was Trey McKitty, Josh Kelly, Trey Marshall. I was about to say Trey Sermon.
He is inactive also, though.
He is. Trey Marshall, Eamon Ogbongbemiga, and then Trey McKitty. So both Treys. And Easton Stick is inactive. So
gotcha. Okay.
Chase Daniels, the backup quarterback today. And then my guy, Larry Roundtree. I've been saying last week, everybody was like, oh, who do you think the Chargers should look at a running back? It's like, they have Larry Roundtree. They're good. They're fine.
Look at like adding a running back?
Yeah. No, like for next year, like drafting another running back.
Oh, yeah. That's not, I don't think that's happening.
No. So my guy, Larry Roundtree, is set to play today. Trey Marshall being inactive isn't really a surprise. He's hurt, I guess.
Yeah,
I guess he was hurt when they signed him, which kind of
I don't think he practiced all week. Yeah.
Trey McKitty being inactive is kind of a surprise, but I think the expectations for him have kind of changed at this point because Donald Parham and Steven Anderson have improved so much as blockers. Steven Anderson had this block against the Seahawks where he lined up actually as the fullback and led out on the perimeter and just bulldozed a Seattle safety. So I think expectations have kind of changed for Trey McKitty, and if he's kind of getting essentially a redshirt season, then I think that's kind of got to be the expectations going forward, which kind of sucks because they spent a 3rd-round pick on him, and I was pretty excited about him. I had pegged him as a sleeper, but with the way that Donald Parham and Steven Anderson have improved, like this kind of isn't that surprising to me.
Yeah, and they kept 4 tight ends because they believe in all of them. On the roster, and like you said, the way Steven Anderson and Donald Parham have just improved. I mean, it's a good thing. I think they won the job, not Trey McKitty lost it. It was just they've played that well in training camp and that involved. But I think we'll see McKitty. I mean, this is week 1. I think we'll see him at some point be active. Who before we get into, I guess, just true matchups, when we look at the receivers, because this was a group that we talked about a lot all offseason, all training camp. Who do you think has besides the obvious Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, but of the other 3, who do you think has like a solid performance today? Do we see Josh Palmer as a rookie, have his first touchdown or first couple of catches? Do you think it's Guyton stretching the field? Who do you see as like the next guy to be really dynamic in this week 1 matchup?
Well, I think we could see a big day for Mike Williams. The thing about Washington is they're one of those teams that really believes in kind of taking away your strength. And they lost Ronald Darby in free agency to the Broncos, to your team. Mm-hmm. But they signed William Jackson, who is an upgrade. I don't know how much, but he is, an upgrade. And I think with him and Bobby McCain, I think we'll kind of see them look to potentially, kind of shade coverage at least towards Keenan Allen and not let Keenan Allen beat them. So if they kind of try to take Keenan Allen away, I wouldn't be all that surprised. And then Kendall Fuller is their other cornerback. When they go to nickel, he'll be in the slot. So the worst cornerback on the team is probably going to be on Mike Williams. So I think we could see Williams have a big day today. He apparently has looked really good in practice the last couple of weeks. Apparently he's fully healthy. So I know that a bunch of us were kind of annoyed at training camp at the lack of improvement as a route runner, but he can still be effective and still have a big day. And I think we kind of see that today.
Yeah, he is what he is, right? So we know what he brings, what value he brings, and now it's just a matter of utilizing that in the right situations. So,
right.
If they can get some big plays out of him, some big yardage and some big red zone attempts, and hey, I think everyone will be happy with that. So, you think Palmer gets involved early, or do you think they'll ease him in this season, or do you think he'll be active like right off the bat?
I think he could be active. I personally happen to think this is a tight end day. I think the weak point of the Washington defense really is up the middle with the linebackers and the safeties, at least in terms of pass coverage. So I think we see a big day from Jared Cook. I think we see Donald Parham get involved as well. So I happen to think this is a tight end day. That doesn't mean that Josh Palmer is not going to be involved. I think he'll probably get a few targets, but I'm not expecting anything major today out of him or Jalen Guyton for that matter. So I think it's going to be a tight end day personally, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think that just to get like the Lombardi system like off and rolling, I think that would make sense to get these tight ends, get Jared Cook rolling, which would be fun to watch. So biggest matchup of the day is going to be this offensive line and this defensive front. Yeah. This is your group, your hog mollies. I've said all along, you have also said all along that, it takes time for continuity. Why right when I get talking do you get crazy? Every time here. She's like quiet when you're talking, and then as soon as I have to talk and have my mic on,
she just likes my voice, I guess.
I guess so. So here. All right. Come here. It's going to take time for this group to find continuity and actually be succinct together. You have all 5 guys that have never played together, and they go against arguably the best defensive front in football. What is your expectation for them in this game? Because obviously it's not going to be a full clean game. Like people cannot expect that. But what's your expectation or your hope that they get out of this week?
I mean, I think the Chargers offensive line will give up a sack or 2. Like I think that should be expected. But really what I want to see is something that Corey Linsley has kind of harped on in his press conferences, and that's their ability to kind of adjust on the fly and solve problems. And I think that's kind of the biggest area of improvement for this team, because under the previous offensive line, when it rained, it poured, right? Like if someone kind of found a weakness, like the Chargers just did not have the horses to make an adjustment and solve the issue. So I think we could see, some tight ends, like we were just talking about, they're blocking. I think we could see some chipping. I think we could see them slide protections one way to help out the tackles. But my biggest thing is like everybody's kind of worried about this matchup, and I get that. But the Chargers 5 are healthy. Like this is different for me than if we were dealing with like a Storm Norton in the game, or if Brennan Hymus, who I really like, but he's still a rookie, if he were in the game. So if the starting 5 are able to stay healthy, I think they'll have a good game. Like I really do think that Rashawn Slater is going to be able to handle his business relatively well against Chase Young. People are saying that like, oh, Chase Young is going to have like 2 sacks, like 10 pressures. I don't really see that. I see maybe getting a sack, maybe a handful of pressures, but I think Rashawn Slater is going to handle his business pretty well for a rookie. The biggest concern for me is the right guard, Ode Abuji, who I think is solid. I think he is an upgrade over the Chargers situation in previous years, when they had Michael Schofield and Ryan Groy and the revolving door last year with Trey Turner being hurt all the time. So I do think that he is an upgrade. But when he was signed, people were like, oh my gosh, the Chargers got a steal. Like he's going to be so good. And it's like the Chargers just needed that 5th spot to be somebody who is serviceable, reliable, and somebody who is going to stay on the field. Just don't get injured and don't be awful. And so I think he'll be better than that. But that should be the standard, like for Ode Abuji. Like no one should be expecting him to be great. It's just be serviceable and be dependable. But this is a tough matchup for the interior, and specifically him, because, I mean, you have Jonathan Allen, who actually led the Washington football team in pressures last year, which I don't think everybody really kind of knows. And then you have Deron Payne, who had more pressures than Jerry Tillery last year. So their interior duo, and you have Matt Ioannidis as their 3rd defensive tackle, who himself is pretty good, had a really solid pass rush win rate. So this is a tough matchup for Ode Abuji. I'm not super concerned about the tackles. I think the tackles will handle their business pretty well. But for me, the concern is that right guard spot specifically.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what helps with Rashawn Slater is, he goes against a guy named Joey Bosa in practice, who's pretty dang good at rushing the passer. So that helps your NFL maturity speed up a little bit. And I know Chase Young, and it's going to be real game speeds. It's a little different, but I'm not going to take this game and be like, oh, okay, wow, Rashawn Slater struggled so much. Let's be concerned. It's, first NFL game after having a full year off, not playing college football last year. So it's going to take time. But yeah, I agree. The interior is going to have a really big test. And Corey Linsley, like you said, who I think was the best signing in free agency, maybe for any team in reality, but still playing between two guards he's never played with before. That communication is going to be huge. And then, what Ode Abuji can do against, that incredible interior. And, it seems like they have 5 Pro Bowlers on the defensive front. Obviously, they only play 4, but that's just how good their rotation is.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a fun matchup to watch, though. And luckily, you got a guy like Justin Herbert, who is used to having pressure in his face and was the best in the game last year at still completing passes. But do you think this running game can get going against this defensive front?
Eckler I think it'll be better. And having Eckler is huge because he's so good at breaking tackles. Like, he's so good after first contact. So, and, we talked about Larry Roundtree. Like, that's his game, too. And, I think that's why they drafted him, is because he was so good after contact. So I think the running game will be good. But, if there is a weakness on this team, on the Washington football team, it is the secondary, in my opinion. So if they kind of passed to set up the run, I wouldn't be too surprised. But as it's time to bolt, like, pressure on Herbert makes him better. Like, it's true. And they can do some other things to take some pressure off of him, make it easy. Do some rollouts, do some RPOs, which they've kind of, hinted at. So I know a lot of people are worried about this matchup, but I'm personally, I'm expecting the Chargers to handle their business today on offense, at least.
Yeah, I think so too. So, it's going to be a fun one. Let's look at the Chargers defense quickly. If it's magic or if it's tragic, whatever happens, the guy can win you games, the guy can lose you games. Right. What's the key to stopping him? Obviously, we want to see Bosa get pressure. If it's Uchenna Nwosu or Kyle Fackrell on the other side, it's going to be a rotation, obviously. But who are you keying in on this defense to really make a difference in this game, besides the obvious ones in Derwin and Bosa?
Yeah, I mean, Bosa and Derwin have to show up, and I think they will. Bosa's first 4 games, it's going to be a juicy start for Joey Bosa, I think. As your mom, over on Bosa, 2+ sacks and 3 TFLs, I think we could see one of those dominant Bosa performances today. Outside of that, I'm glad you mentioned Kyler Fackrell, because I was so impressed with him in training camp and in preseason as kind of that second rusher. And I think he's got to have a big day. They signed Charles Leno in the offseason from Chicago, and he's okay. I think Washington's biggest issue with their left tackle situation in previous years was that they just couldn't get a guy to stay healthy, whether it was Morgan Moses or, of course, Trent Williams before him. So Charles Leno will be on the field, right? He's always healthy, but he's not a top tier tackle. So that could be a matchup that the Chargers exploit. And then I think we've got to see the Chargers get some turnovers, like 2-3 turnovers for them to really kind of, make them pay, because we've seen Ryan Fitzpatrick at times in September specifically, really come out swinging and have a 400-yard, 4-touchdown game. That can't happen. You've got to have, your cornerbacks, safeties, linebackers, somebody's got to make an interception. Somebody's got to cause a fumble and give the Chargers some short fields. And, everybody kind of thinks of Ryan Fitzpatrick as a really good quarterback from last season, because Tua wasn't. But Ryan wasn't any better, and he actually was tied with Carson Wentz in terms of turnover-worthy play percentages on Pro Football Focus. So he's going to give the Chargers secondary some opportunities, and they've got to take advantage.
Yeah, it'll be he's a fun guy to watch. He's fun to watch, but you just don't know what you're going to get with him every time.
He's fun in fantasy football. I'll give him that. But he's going to throw some interceptions in his tenure in Washington. And the Chargers need to be one of those teams to take advantage.
Yeah, I've been saying all offseason, I think Chris Harris breaks out this year. I know it's funny to say a veteran of his stature, his age as a
Right.
breakout player. But for the Chargers team, having a down year last year, I think he breaks out. And I think hopefully this is a game he makes a statement in. And, play with Brandon Staley in Denver, so he knows the system, knows what they want to do. And if he can get a pick early, get going early, then that's going to go well for this team and flip the field. And then they can kind of ease into the transition of the offensive line if they don't have so much pressure on it early on with turnovers. Yeah. So who do you got in this one? You got the Chargers taking it?
Yeah, I do. I know, like I said, everybody's kind of worried about the defensive line. But if the Chargers offensive line can hold up, I think the Chargers have enough advantages everywhere else. And like we said, this is the healthiest team. This is the healthiest this team has ever been in my life heading into week 1. And you've got all the best players are healthy. I know Austin Eckler had the little hamstring scare this week, but it seems like it was more so precautionary. So I think the Chargers win. I think it's it could be a defensive slugfest, but I'm taking the over on points. The over under is at 44.5. So I've been predicting Chargers 27, Washington football team 23 all week. But I think this certainly could be a higher scoring game than even that. So I do think the Chargers come out of Washington with a win today. I think Justin Herbert has a solid day. But really, I just think this defense is really going to get after Ryan Fitzpatrick and really have a good day today.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've been predicting like 24-17 is what I've been thinking with this Chargers team. And I think we'll see maybe a slow start from the offense as they really all get on the same page and then start clicking later on. I think the defense should be solid or make adjustments later on as well to clamp down. And yeah, I know it's an away game. There'll be obviously fans in the stands, first time that they've had to play in front of fans other than preseason, but the starters. So they do have that advantage over there. But I've been seeing on Twitter, man, a lot of Bolt fans out there in Washington. Love it.
Yeah, they had that meetup at some sports bar in Washington, and they like completely took the place over, and apparently had like a line out the door and everything. So
yeah,
we'll see. I'm not expecting like a ton, but maybe a couple thousand, and those always help, right? Like that's a big deal.
Yeah, just because the narrative is always the opposite. So seeing some Bolt fans travel, it's always good to see. So, good point here by Julio. Obviously, Brandon Staley with the Rams last year, but swept the NFC East. The Rams did, so he knows this division well and knows how to exploit them. I like where this team, the direction. Have you been watching All In on YouTube?
Oh yeah, that speech that opened this week's episode by Brandon Staley, man. I love him so much. And the way that he
goosebumps,
the way that he talks, man, the fact that he was just like, yeah, so what? Justin Herbert had 6 coaches in 6 years. We don't give a shit. I love it. And, I think he is just going to do wonders for this team. Like I really do. I know it's early. I know he hasn't played any games yet, but I have zero doubt in my mind that Brandon Staley is going to be a great head coach in this league.
Yeah, I agree. And again, what everyone needs, if they start, have some losses early, which we both think they're going to win today, but no one freak out. Like these things take time. Like these things take time to, it was not going to take as long as Chip Kelly took 4 years, but you can see sometimes when you trust the process, all of a sudden it all comes together. And I think that's going to come together for this Charger team sooner rather than later, but it may be a couple games. We don't know for sure. But I do like them this one. And even though Washington was a playoff team last year, I think this Chargers team can definitely be a playoff team this year just with the talent they have. And if this coaching staff works out like they do. So, let's quickly go through the Rams game because my daughter's on this morning. I don't think she's going to let us get too much longer. So I apologize to you and everyone out there. I think I'm going to start having to make babysitter plans for this Sunday show because this is not working with her here.
We got to get Mia some coffee.
That's the last thing she needs. More energy. Yeah. So this Rams host the Bears Sunday Night Football prime time at SoFi. First time with fans in a regular season game at SoFi. Everyone is amped. First time we see Matthew Stafford. Period. Didn't play at all in preseason. Obviously, I saw him at training camp and whatnot, but we'll see him in horns. He knows the Bears well, playing in the same division as them for a decade with the Lions. So expectations for this team are extremely high for this game, which is crazy. It's the 4th time they're playing the Bears in 4 years. So it's becoming like a division game almost. But, new defensive coordinator, Sean Desai for the Bears after Chuck Pagano retires. They're rolling out Andy. Let me start with this with you, because I know you're not totally going to break down the Rams, which is fine.
I can't.
I know you're a big Justin Fields guy.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on the Bears sticking with Andy Dalton, at least for now?
I think this game is going to be ugly. Like I think the Rams are going to eviscerate Andy Dalton today, and partially because I just don't think he's a good quarterback. But their offensive line is just a mess. Like it really is. You know, Jason Peters is going to start for them at left tackle. The last time he started at left tackle for the Eagles in 2019 wasn't pretty. Last year he played guard for them because their injuries were so bad. You know, I was a big Tevin Jenkins guy coming out of the draft, but he's injured and on injured reserve. Jermaine Ifedi just barely got activated off the PUP list like 3 weeks ago. So their offensive line is a mess. Andy Dalton's not very good. And outside of Allen Robinson, like they don't really have any playmakers that I think are like above average players. Like David Montgomery is okay. You know, Darnell Mooney is getting a lot of hype, but again, Andy Dalton's not very good. Like he's not a quarterback who's going to push the ball down the field. So I understand like there's this thought process of like, oh, well, you don't want to throw Justin Fields to the Wolves. You know, there's Aaron Donald. It's like there's dudes every week in the NFL. Like Aaron Donald is a great player, but Justin Fields eventually is going to have to play against some great players. Like that's just the reality of the league. So to me, you know, like if we could go back and have Justin Herbert play all 16 games last year, I would 100% advocate for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that should be the case for Justin Fields too. You know, everybody kind of goes back to like the Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes thing. Andy Dalton's not Alex Smith, man. Alex Smith was playing at like a very, very high level for the Chiefs, and they were a constant playoff team. That's not the situation in Chicago. So I don't like it at all. I think you draft a player in the first round in the top 10, you trade up to get him, or 11, I guess. So I think Fields should be playing on Sunday or today. Gosh, it still feels like it's Saturday.
I know. We're here.
But I think Justin Fields should be playing and starting every game this year.
Yeah, it's you know, it's always a big debate between fans and content creators and podcasters and bloggers. The whole like, you know, yeah, do you rest a guy? Do you let him sit? Do you not? Like what do the statistics say? Like I think even in our LAFB group chat, we've gone back and forth on this for a long time, or at least last year regarding Justin Herbert. And, you know, I think it's safe to say at some point Fields will play this year. Absolutely. You know, I had a Bears guest on my show a few days ago and, you know, asked him that, like, did Justin Fields or did Andy Dalton win the job, or did Justin Fields just not take it? And he basically said, you know, Andy Dalton had a solid camp. He's the safer bet. Fields flashed, but you could tell he was a rookie. So they just, the coaches a lot of times, admit that they're right or wrong, they are going to go with the safest bet at quarterback. Who's my safest bet to win me games, even instead of who's the guy that's going to be our future. Do we get him experience now early on? So right or wrong, I think as a, you know, Rams fans out there would much rather face Andy Dalton than Justin Fields, which probably tells you all you need to know about who should be starting.
Yeah.
But I haven't followed the Bears all training camp, so I can't really say. I know we've seen him a little bit in preseason, but it's so hard to judge preseason success. But still, the guy's going to be good, and he's going to start eventually. But in this one, at least for the first half, we'll see Andy Dalton, and I think that's good for the Rams because I don't think they're going to do too much on offense against this defense.
Yeah, just really quickly, the Bears schedule. So they open with the Rams, obviously. They play the Bengals next week, so they should probably win that one. Then they have the Browns, Raiders, Packers, Buccaneers, 49ers, Steelers, Ravens in the first 8 weeks.
Yeah, brutal.
So I get like going with a safer quarterback. I kind of get it, but you're going to lose regardless. Like as much as I would love to see Justin Fields get in there and win some games, like neither quarterback is going to win you these games. So you might as well get the young guy some experience. Like that's what I've always fallen back on. If you are expecting the safer quarterback to give you a chance at a Super Bowl, great. Then you take the safer option. But that's not what's happening here. Like this team is not a Super Bowl team. They barely snuck into the playoffs last year with Mitch Trubisky, which is still like the weirdest thing. So to me, give the young guy some experience and see what you have, because you have to build around him. Yeah. That's kind of where I think is the mistake.
And, you know, this this could be a very similar situation to the Chargers, where this coaching staff like hung on by a thread, keeping their jobs. Then they draft this young quarterback. They're going with the veteran. Most likely Fields will start at some point, and then we could see this coaching staff still get fired at the end of the year, and then we'll see this same thing where they get a new coaching staff in. Everyone talks about changing the system on a rookie young quarterback. So it could be in a very similar situation to what the Chargers went through this last offseason. But anyway, for this game, I love the Rams in this one. I think it's going to be, like you said, like a blowout. I think I predicted 35 to like 13 or something, 35-17 or something like that.
Yeah.
The defense,
and I don't even know if the Bears will get to that, man.
Yeah, I know. Probably not. I mean, this defense is, the reigning number one defense, obviously lost a couple starters plus their defensive coordinator, but Raheem Morris, very capable, keeping a lot of the same concepts. You still have Jalen Ramsey. You still have Darius Williams. You still have Leonard Floyd and obviously Aaron Donald. And this offense just gets a huge boost with one of the best receiving cores in the game with Matthew Stafford. Some question marks at running back with Cam Akers being injured, but they'll still be productive and efficient when needed. And the biggest person for me I'm watching, though, in this game is Brian Allen, the center, because that's going to be the biggest storyline, who hasn't played a game since 2019, wasn't very good when he played a game in 2019, and now is the starting center as they move Austin Corbett back to guard. So he'll be one to watch, and how this offensive line holds up and how he quarterbacks the offensive line and how the snap center exchange with him and Stafford. But I'm not overly concerned about it, but definitely that's the one that I'm like, if I have a concern at all, that's the only one I'm really seeing in this one.
Yeah, that's a tough matchup for him with Hakeem Hicks, who's still, I know he's kind of injured a lot last year, but he still is a really, really good player.
Yeah.
So that could be a tough matchup for them. That really is, if you're putting Khalil Mack against, I forget his first name all the time, but Havenstein on the right side.
Yeah, Rob.
Khalil Mack could have so Khalil Mack could have a good day today. I hope he goes on the left side, man. I love these like top tier primetime O-line matchups, and Andrew Whitworth against Khalil Mack, power against power. I think that would be a lot of fun to watch. But I think Hakeem Hicks could definitely, cause some problems for them. But I'm not super worried about the offensive line. And plus, McVay is so smart about, scheming out those kind of issues, especially with a quarterback like Matt Stafford, who's so accurate on the move. So I'm not expecting like a huge problem for the Rams offensive line this week.
Yeah. I just can't wait to see Stafford out there. Just finally.
I know, man.
Finally, we can see it on prime time. I got, I don't know if you saw this, but I wouldn't say an argument, like a little like mini debate with, on Twitter with Eric Davis, who used to be a corner for the 49ers. And he has a podcast on the Believe Network. So we kind of have met each other through that, but he has said on his show and on Twitter, he thinks Jared Goff is a better quarterback than Matthew Stafford. And part of his argument was,
what?
You look at the Rams were a bad organization when they came to LA for many years in St. Louis, and Goff, he is saying that Goff was the reason, or one of the main reasons, why they turned that around and became a winning franchise, whereas Stafford, who has all the talent, but all his tenure there remained a bad organization with him at the helm. I disagree, because I think the main reason why the Rams turned around was because of Sean McVay, not because of Jared Goff. Sean McVay gave Goff all the tools to be successful, and he is the reason why, whereas Stafford had, 3 or 4 different head coaches, 4 or 5 different offensive coordinators, never had a good running game, never had a solid defense. Yes, he does deserve some of the blame. I mean, I don't think you can sit here and just be like, oh, Stafford is just unblameable. He was perfect. It was nothing, like, he forced a lot of turnovers. When I was talking to the Bear guy, he said the same thing. It's like, Stafford's great, but you can guarantee one bad turnover a game from him when he plays the Bears. And like, yeah, that's true. I mean, he does that. He forces the ball sometimes. He's a gunslinger.
Yeah.
But to sit here and say Goff is the reason the Rams turned around, again, I liked Goff. I think he was good here. Obviously, he went to the Super Bowl, but that was all Sean McVay.
Yeah, we've seen this, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan system really kind of elevate players past to who they really are. We've seen it with Jimmy Garoppolo. We've seen it with Nick Mullins, man. Nick Mullins was like, had some insane stats playing for Kyle Shanahan, and he couldn't even make it on the Jaguars team. Like, the Jaguars cut him. So that's just kind of, I think Sean McVay is just a really, really great head coach. And, you can talk about, his kind of issues in terms of, roster building with the front office, but the on the field product is good. And I don't know if you remember this, but we did that roundtable back in like February after free agency.
Mm-hmm.
And I said that I was expecting an MVP season from Matt Stafford, and I still am expecting that to be the case. Like my prediction is Josh Allen, but I expect Stafford to be in the hunt because I just think he has some supreme talent at this position.
Mm-hmm.
And he's never had a coach like Sean McVay. And he's never had this many weapons. Like, yes, he had Calvin Johnson. Yes, he had Kenny Golladay. But, I mean, Deshaun Jackson is his fourth best receiver, maybe third. And that's a great, great weapon. So I'm expecting a huge season from Matt Stafford, and I think we see it start tonight.
Yeah, I've said all along that Megatron obviously was his best receiver, but this is by far from 1 to 5, his best core.
Yeah.
I mean, you look even at last year, I made this comment a few days ago, Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones, who are good in their own right, but now that they've moved on from Stafford and Kenny Golladay in New York with Daniel Jones and Marvin Jones in Jacksonville with rookie Trevor Lawrence, like,
it's not going to be pretty.
They're not the same caliber receivers they are when they were playing with Matt Stafford. And if you look at just the fantasy community, which isn't, real life, but it is at the same time, like it's still like projections and statistics. Yeah. I mean, they're like wide receiver 30. They're not like these top tier guys that everyone is like, wow, Matthew Stafford, these great receivers. He obviously elevated their game, and now he has receivers that have been very good with the Jared Goff, and he can elevate them even further. So I agree with you. He can definitely be him and Justin Herbert are going to be just so fun to watch this year, both as potential MVP candidates, I think.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be so much fun. If you're a fan of points, it's a good time to live in Los Angeles because I think both of these teams, like Brandon Staley has said, like their goal is to be the best passing offense in the league. Like I think it really could be Rams and Chargers make up, 2 of the top 5 teams in passing. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I'm excited to see really kind of that next step for Cooper Kupp.
Mm-hmm.
I think Cooper Kupp is really kind of one of the more underrated receivers in the league, much like Keenan Allen. But he's kind of like their red zone threat that nobody really realizes. And it's going to be a lot of fun to see that next step for him because of Matthew Stafford. And maybe they use him more as a deep threat. Maybe they use him more in the intermediate range. So that's somebody that I'm really excited to watch on the Rams outside of Stafford and the usuals on defense.
Yeah, love Cooper Kupp. I think he's going to he had a great year last year, great rebound the year before. I think he'll have another great year this year. So yeah, the over-under on this game for the Bears is 46.5, I believe.
That's pretty low.
It's low, but when you look at the last 3 matchups, it's been much more defensive. Now this year, I think you pound the over because I just think this offense. I think McVay is going to want to show the world why he went and got Stafford. He's going to want to put points on the board and a lot of them, and not let the throttle off to just show the NFL, hey, this is real. This is not just all hype. I'm sick of hearing you guys talk about we're overhyped and this and that. So I would pound the over on that if I was betting on this game.
Yeah, I would as well. What is their situation at running back looking like these days? Because obviously, Cam Akers is hurt. Darrell Henderson has been kind of in and out. And then he signed Sony Michel. Is Michel going to be the guy today, or what's kind of that situation?
So Henderson's your unquestioned starter. McVay loves Henderson for whatever reason. I'm no disrespect. I don't mean it like that, but he loves Darrell Henderson. However, I don't see him as being like he's the starter, but he's not like a 20 plus carry guy. Like it's just not his style. He hasn't been healthy enough to do that, which is why they went out and traded 2 picks for Sony Michel because they needed more depth there after, losing, multiple guys in training camp to injury as well. So I don't think they'll split carries yet just because Sony Michel is so new in this system, but I would not be shocked if it's 2/3 to 1/3 split between him and Michel. So, but Henderson's your main guy. He should be successful. I know he's looked good all training camp long. It's just a matter of how many touches they actually want him to get because they really need to make sure they keep him healthy. Because if you lose a guy like him, then you're really scraping the waiver wire to bring someone else in because then you have Sony Michel and Jake Funk, who was a 7th round pick and has had his own injury history. So, but for now, I think everything looks good, at least with them.
That's good. Good to know.
Yeah.
So I'm just now seeing Edwards comment. Austin Eckler is a full go today. He looks pretty healthy. And then some of the beat reporters at the game today are pointing out that Nasir Adderley is the first guy in line for the kickoff return duties, which is something else that I think Chargers fans should be excited. He flashed some really high in ability in that regard. And Tyler, my co-host at the Guilty as Charged podcast, actually pointed this out to me that Dustin Hopkins was like bottom quarter of the league in terms of touchback percentage. So this could be a good ding. Wow, cannot speak right now. Good game for Nasir Adderley to potentially pop a big kickoff return.
There we go. We need to see it. We need to see special teams. That was the one, all the excitement that we've had with this Chargers team in training camp with the offense, the defense, the coaching staff. Special teams was still an issue. So that's the one thing we really want to see improved upon and see some success. And hopefully, Tristan Vizcaino doesn't miss any extra points or any simple kicks. So that's the other thing I'm really watching for this team is just the special teams and if there is improvement. And obviously we'll see it throughout the season. I mean, you can't fix everything in a training camp when you're not really going live, but hopefully we'll just see steady improvement from this group. And hopefully that starts with Nasir Adderley getting some positive returns.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Exciting stuff on both fronts for the LA teams. I think both teams come out victorious today. I think the Rams probably end up winning, I'll say 34-10.
Okay. I like it. So we're both in the 30s.
Yeah.
I'll give the Bears 13 points.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Say go Chargers.
She gives him 12.
She gives him 12
points. So, well, with that, we made it. I know there was a few instances of child fit, but thank you, Steven, for putting up with it and dealing with me and dealing with the distractions. Thank everyone out there for tuning in to LAFB Live. We'll be doing this every Sunday at 8:30. Hopefully I'll do a better job of lining up a babysitter for this little rascal. But you got plans for the game right now? Or are you just chilling with the wife and enjoying it?
Yeah, just hanging out. I'm going to go down and make some Bagel Witch breakfast sandwiches for the two of us in a second. Then just hanging out. So it'll be a good day today.
I love it. I'll be the same. Me and this one are making something. We got to eat something. And what are we? 30 minutes to kick off? Just about.
Yeah. 36 minutes.
36 minutes, dude. Can't wait. Long off season. We were together last season, so it's gonna be fun to see hopefully a lot better brand of football for the Chargers and continued excellence for the Rams. But good stuff here in LA. So, Steven, thanks, man. Hope you enjoy the game. I'm sure we'll be talking throughout, though.
Yeah, man. Sounds good. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. Just super excited that the off season is officially over, and man, just can't wait.
Yeah, and everyone make sure to tune into LAFBnetwork.com. We got recaps and analysis and takeaways and winners and losers that go up pretty quickly after the game. So, this game, when we're over, we'll be up there doing stuff and hanging out on Twitter. So make sure to follow us. At Ryan Dyer LAFB is my handle. At Stephen I. Haglund is Stevens. At LAFB Network's the main one. So we'll be talking Chargers, Rams all day long. So, man, enjoy, brother. Appreciate you. Thanks as always.
You too, man. We'll talk to you later.